Jane was a 70-year-old woman who lived in a large mansion at the edge of a quiet village. She was wealthy beyond imagination, her riches capable of buying anything she desired. But Jane had no husband, no children, and no family. Her story was one of great power and deep loneliness. Many years ago, when Jane was a young woman, she had joined a witches' coven in search of wealth. The witches had made her an offer. They would grant her unimaginable riches, but in exchange, she had to vow never to marry, never to bear children, and never to let a man touch her. They warned her that if she ever broke this vow, the consequences would be worse than death. Desperate for wealth, Jane agreed. Over the years, Jane became one of the richest women anyone had ever known. She owned lands, businesses, and treasures from across the world. Yet, despite all her wealth, something was missing. Jane felt an emptiness in her heart that no amount of money could fill. Every evening, Jane would sit by the riverbank near her mansion, gazing at the water and the fish that swam freely. She liked being there, away from people, because it helped her resist the temptation to fall into the trap of love. But deep down, Jane longed for the warmth of a man's embrace. She dreamed of love and companionship, but she knew it was forbidden. One day, as Jane sat by the river, she noticed an elderly woman standing with a young man nearby. They were laughing, talking, and admiring the beauty of nature. Jane couldn't take her eyes off them. The sight of their joy struck her like a dagger. She imagined herself standing there with a man, holding his hand and sharing the sweetness of life. But then she remembered the witch's warning. Her happiness would come at a price too great to bear. Jane's thoughts consumed her, and tears welled up in her eyes. What kind of life is this? She whispered to herself. I have all the money in the world, but no joy. What's the point of wealth when I can't share it with anyone? I have missed out on the one thing that makes life beautiful. Her heart grew heavier with each passing moment. And even if I wanted to find a man who will want me now, she said, wiping her tears, I am old, too old. Young men won't look at me. And I don't want anyone my age. But I have money. I could buy love if I wanted to. But the price I will pay for breaking my vow will destroy me. She sighed deeply, her sobs blending with the gentle sounds of the river. Why did I ever agree to this? Oh, what kind of life is this? A life without love is no life at all. That night, Jane lay in her enormous bed, surrounded by luxury. The room was warm, with heated floors and softest duvets money could buy, but Jane felt a coldness inside her that no fire or blanket could chase away. She wrapped herself tightly in her covers, but the chill of loneliness seeped through. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she stared at the ceiling. What have I done to myself? She cried softly. I have everything, but I'm still empty. What's the use of all this wealth when I can't even feel the simplest warmth of another person? I am going crazy. I am losing my mind. For the first time in years, Jane whispered the name of God. Oh God, what have I done? But then she stopped herself, panic setting in. No, I shouldn't say that. God must hate me now. After all, I turned my back on him to join the witches. I am finished. There's no hope for me. She lay awake, tormented by her thoughts, longing for a love she could never have. The night stretched on, cold and unforgiving, as Jane's heart ached for something money could never buy. One fateful night, Jane found herself in the witch's coven, a cold, dark place illuminated only by flickering torches. The air was heavy with the secret of herbs and candles, and shadows danced eerily along the stone walls. Jane knelt in the center of the circle, trembling and crying, her tears falling onto the cold ground. She had reached her breaking point. Please, she begged, her voice trembling with desperation. I have been faithful to the vows I made. For so many years, I have kept my promise. I have lived without love, without the warmth of a man, and it has not been easy for me. I am human. Blood flows through my veins, just like yours. Please, my sisters, I am begging you, just let me have one man, just one. Her sobs grew louder as she clutched the hem of her dark robe. You don't know what it's like to live this way. I see people holding hands, laughing and sharing their lives. I see love everywhere, and I can't have it. Every day, I am reminded of what I have sacrificed. Do you not have hearts? Look at me, an old woman kneeling before you, begging like this. Please let my tears touch you. Have pity on me. The witches stood around her in a circle, their faces cold and unfeeling. The eldest witch stepped forward, her voice sharp and merciless. Jane, even if you cry blood from your eyes, the answer is no. You knew the rules when you made your choice. You were warned. You gave up love, marriage and men in exchange for wealth. Did you think there would be no consequences? Did you not understand that a day like this will come? Jane shook her head, her tears falling faster. I didn't know it would be this hard. I didn't realize how much I would miss. The elder witch raised a hand, silencing her. Enough! You are old now, Jane. You are no longer the beautiful young woman who joined us all those years ago. No man will fancy you. You are nothing but an old hag now. Go and enjoy your money. Flee from men as you were told. If you want to freeze in your bed, then freeze. If you want to roast in your loneliness, then roast. It is of no concern to us. The other witches cackled cruelly, their laughter echoing through the coven as Jane's pleas fell on deaf ears. Defeated, Jane rose slowly, her body shaking from the effort. She wiped her tears but said nothing more. Her heart was heavy as she turned and walked away, her steps echoing in the cold, empty chamber. Back at her mansion, Jane sat alone in her grand living room. The fire in the fireplace crackled softly, but its warmth couldn't reach her. She stared at the expensive decorations that filled her home, golden statues, crystal chandeliers, and rare paintings from around the world. None of it brought her joy. She sighed deeply, her voice breaking as she spoke to herself. What kind of life is this? I have everything except the one thing that matters. What's the use of all this wealth if I can't share it with anyone? If I can't feel the warmth of a man, the love of a partner? Her hands trembled as she poured herself a glass of wine, but even that didn't calm her nerves. Those wishes, she muttered bitterly. They have no idea what I'm going through. They don't care. They have condemned me to this miserable existence, but I won't let them win. I can't keep living like this. Jane's mind raced as an idea began to take shape. She leaned forward, her eyes filled with a mixture of desperation and determination. I will find a way out of this. If the witches won't help me, I will go to someone who will. A native doctor, yes. They have powers too. Maybe they can break this curse. Maybe they can free me from this horrible life. She stood up, pacing the room as her plans solidified. I can't live another day like this. I need to feel love, even if it's just for a moment. I need to feel alive again. The witches can't control me forever. I will find someone who can help me. I will pay whatever price they ask. I don't care anymore. I just want to live like a normal woman, even if it's for a short while. Jane's heart burned with resolve. For the first time in decades, she felt a flicker of hope, but deep down, she knew the path she was about to take was dangerous. If the witches found out, the consequences would be severe. Still, Jane was willing to risk it all. As the night stretched on, Jane sat by the window, staring at the moon. The silver light bathed her face, and for a moment she allowed herself to dream of what life could be. If only she could escape the chains that bound her. I will do it, she whispered to herself. I will find a way to break this curse. I have to. With that, Jane made her decision. She will seek out the help of a native doctor, no matter the cost. The journey ahead will be perilous, but Jane was ready to face it. After all, she had nothing left to lose. The next morning, Jane woke up determined to end her loneliness. She ventured deep into the forest, seeking the help of a feared and renowned native doctor. The journey was exhausting, but her longing for love drove her forward. After hours of walking, she reached a small thatched hut surrounded by eerie silence. The air was heavy with the scent of incense and burnt herbs. Inside, the native doctor, an elderly man with piercing eyes, listened intently as Jane poured out her heart. She spoke of the vow she had taken, the years of loneliness, and her desperate desires to feel the love of a man before her life ended. The native doctor nodded, then began to chant incantations, his voice echoing through the dimly lit room. After completing the rituals, he handed Jane a small charm. Go home, he said. Your curse is broken. You are free to love any man you want. Enjoy your life. Jane's face lit up with joy. Thank you, she said, tears streaming down her face. She left the hut feeling reborn, her heart filled with hope and excitement for the life she had always dreamed of. Back at her mansion, Jane felt like a new woman. She smiled more, laughed to herself, and began imagining the happiness that awaited her. One sunny afternoon, she ordered some household items from a delivery company. As she sipped her wine and waited, there was a knock at her door. When Jane opened it, her heart skipped a beat. Standing there was a young, handsome delivery man, holding her items. His charm and youthful energy overwhelmed her. Jane's heart raced in a way it hadn't in years. Come in, she said, her voice unusually warm. You have been walking under the hot sun. Have a drink with me to cool down before you leave. The young man hesitated, but Jane's kindness made it hard to refuse. He stepped inside and sat with her as she poured him a glass of wine. They chatted, and Jane felt like a young girl again. Her eyes sparkled as she spoke, and she couldn't stop smiling. As they drank, Jane's thoughts raced. This is my chance, she thought. I can't let this man slip away. He's everything I ever wanted. She leaned forward, her heart pounding. Do you like me? She asked softly. The young man, startled by the question, replied, Yes, ma, you are a nice woman. Who wouldn't like someone as kind as you? Jane's face lit up. Really? So you think I am a good woman? Yes, ma, he said, smiling politely. Jane took a deep breath and asked the question that had been burning in her heart. Will you be my boyfriend? The young man froze, his smile vanishing. He looked at her in shock. God forbid, he exclaimed, jumping up from his seat. What are you saying, ma? You are old enough to be my grandmother. This is disgusting. Please don't ever say something like that again. It's shameful. Jane's face turned red with anger and embarrassment. She watched as the young man continued his rant, calling her out for her inappropriate behavior. Humiliated and furious, Jane decided to take matters into her own hands. When the young man excused himself to use her restroom, Jane quickly poured a mysterious substance into his drink. A powder the native doctor had given her, which she believed would make the man fall for her instantly. When the young man returned, he drank the wine without suspicion. Almost immediately, his demeanor changed, his eyes glazed over, and his movements became erratic. Suddenly, he grabbed Jane with a force that terrified her. Jane screamed as the man, now under the influence of the charm, lost control. Please, let me go, she begged, her voice trembling. I have made a mistake. I don't want this anymore. Just leave. But the man was beyond reason. He overpowered her, and Jane's cries filled the mansion. By the time he left, Jane was a shadow of herself, bruised, broken, and utterly devastated. As soon as the young man left, the witches struck in an instant. All of Jane's wealth vanished. Her grand mansion crumbled into a wretched, broken-down shack. Her luxurious clothes turned to rags, and her body became frail and weak. She could no longer walk or move. Jane found herself alone in the ruins of her once glorious life. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. She cried endlessly, regretting every decision she had made. Why did I believe that native doctor? Why didn't I just accept my life as it was? I had everything, but my greed and loneliness ruined me. Her cries echoed in the empty house, but no one came to help her. She had no food, no water, and no strength to move. Slowly, hunger and despair consumed her. One cold night, as the moon shone through the broken roof of her shack, Jane took her last breath. Her life ended in the misery she had tried so hard to escape. Moral lessons. Greed leads to destruction. Jane's insatiable desire for love and companionship led her to make reckless decisions that cost her everything. Be content with what you have. Jane had wealth and comfort but couldn't appreciate it. Instead, she chased something forbidden, leading to her downfall. 3. Actions have consequences. The choices we make often come with a price. Jane's pact with the witches and her later betrayal of their rules ultimately destroyed her. 4. Seek true solutions, not shortcuts. Instead of seeking genuine happiness, Jane turned to a deceptive native doctor, which worsened her situation. Thank you for reading this story. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and stick around for more engaging and thought-provoking stories. Your support means the world to me, and I can't wait to share more tales with you. Stay tuned and remember, life is full of lessons. Learn from them.